Playoffs? Let's talk about playoffs.
I want winners.
Now, if you want to crown them, then crown your ass.
I couldn't care less about the team struggling.
Ice up, son. Ice up.
Just keep matriculating the ball down the field, boys.
Straight cash, homie.
Welcome, everybody, to the inaugural edition of the NFL Double Overtime Podcast. I'm Joey Hickman, joined on the other line with Eli. Eli, how are you?
Hello, everybody. I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah. So basically, today we're gonna preview the upcoming NFL season, and I'm really excited for it. How about you? You excited? Eli?
I am very excited. I can't stand preseason football, so I'm counting down to Thursday, because the big game between the Packers and the Seahawks, and then, of course, waiting for my Eagles to play on Sunday. I can't wait.
Yeah, and I can't stand off-season football anymore either. It's all the talk of just stuff that really won't matter when people get on the field.
Yeah, I know. I try to block it out, and then preseason comes, and I get myself all excited, and then I realize it's preseason football, and I just can't do it.
I just think it's funny that the two players that have been talked about most this offseason might not even play a single snap.
I know.
Michael Sam and Johnny Manziel.
Yeah.
But we're going to try to ignore that and just talk about really meaningful stuff in this offseason. And we're going to start going by division through all 8 divisions. This might be a pretty long podcast doing this way, but I'm feeling pretty good about it. So the NFC South.
Yes.
One of the most interesting divisions in football, year to year, really.
Mm-hmm.
Real quick, who do you think's going to win this division?
Oh, man. I'm going to have to go with the Colts.
NFC South, friend.
Oh, the NFC South, not the AFC South. Okay. The NFC South. Okay.
Saints, Atlanta, Carolina,
yeah.
and
I'm going to have to go with the Saints then.
I think I will too. I'll get into this a little later. I really like the Saints team. I think of all, Tampa's the only team in the division that really gives them a push for a better offseason. I'm not a very big salary cap expert.
Mm-hmm.
I still have no clue how they signed Jarvis Byrd. It's incredible they were able to re-sign Jimmy Graham and sign Jarvis Byrd this offseason.
I think they shook some bad contracts, though. You know, they let some guys go.
There's so much turnover on this roster. Their corners aren't great, but they might have the best safety duo in Kenny Vaccaro and Jarvis Byrd.
Mm-hmm.
And they do have one of the best coordinators in the league in Rob Ryan. Am I crazy for thinking that Tampa places second in this division?
You're not crazy at all. I think that's exactly what's going to happen, actually.
Yeah, because Carolina... Oh, poor Cam Newton.
I know.
Carolina lost all of its receivers. They were not, let's say, an all-star cast last season, but they lost Steve Smith, who people think was cut for salary cap reason, but he actually didn't affect the cap that much. He was cut because I guess there was some feeling that he wasn't willing to hand over the quote-unquote leadership reins to young Cam Newton.
Which I think is nuts, because Cam is the captain of that team. I mean, come on.
Yeah, but Steve Smith is very vocal, obviously.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I think Kelvin Benjamin, the receiver they drafted in the first round this year, can be really good. I also think it's ironic that an Auburn quarterback's throwing to the guy who just caught a championship-winning pass against Auburn in the BCS title game. As someone who's lived the Jason Avant life, I think you can tell he's probably not a good number 2 receiver.
No.
And as someone who's lived the Jericho Cotchery life, I can tell you he's not a good number 2 either, as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan.
Jason Avant. if Jason Avant is your number 2 receiver, then you have an issue.
Yeah, most definitely. I like Tampa. I really like Tampa. I like the pop quiz, Eli, real quick. Who threw the least interceptions of any quarterback that started more than one game last year?
That started more than one game, the least amount of interceptions?
Yes.
Oh, gosh. I don't know on that one. Who?
Nick Foles threw 2.
Yeah.
Josh McCown only threw 1.
What?
Yes. He only threw 1 interception. He led the league in QBR last year. By the end of the year, he was ahead of, in fact, Nick Foles. Now, granted, Nick Foles had over twice as many touchdowns, but here's the thing, and Josh McCown's never shown any sign that he is the kind of guy that can put up these numbers every year, but they built that team in the same way that the Bears were built. Basically a basketball team at receivers. They have 6'4" Vincent Jackson, proven commodity in this league. And a guy I was really big on in the draft, 6'5" Mike Evans, who was Johnny Manziel's number one receiver, had one of my favorite games of the year against Alabama of any wide receiver. He was just awesome. The guy is a beast. And he's just like Alshon Jeffrey and Brandon Marshall. He's just going to be throwing it up to him, and that's not a bad strategy.
It's really not. I think that's part of Calvin Johnson's thing also. I think Matt Stafford just throws balls up to him and he just grabs them.
Yeah. I also think they might have made, if not the best head coaching signing, the second best in Lovie Smith.
Yeah.
Which after that Greg Schiano debacle was probably the best signing that they can make. Lovie Smith's a big players coach, great defensive mind, obviously with those Bears team. It's different than Jim Caldwell, who ended his last coaching career, I think, with 2 wins in the season. Lovie Smith ended his last coaching stop with 10 wins, and he got released for missing the playoffs. So, yeah, I like the Bucs.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're good enough to take New Orleans this year, and I think Josh McCown's a temporary solution. But I like them going forward.
I do too, but they did lose some key pieces. I mean, Darrelle Revis did leave, and they lost a good part of their offensive line too.
Their offensive line is a big problem. Darrelle Revis, to say leave, was kind of wrong. They let him walk, which was a little weird. I mean, granted, his contract was enormous, but they did sign Alteron Werner, who before Revis was out was my favorite cornerback in this free agent class. I like Werner a lot, and he's very young, and he's kind of like Jarris Byrd, where you kind of have to put him in the right situation to succeed. Like, you'll know this, Namdi Asamoah.
Yeah.
But I think Lovie Smith is smart enough to put him in that position to succeed. And like I said, Tampa's obviously they're one of the best sap calorie situations. I like this team moving forward. That said, I don't think it's crazy that Atlanta can place second in this division. What about you?
I don't think it's too crazy either. I mean, they still have 2 great receivers there in Julio Jones and Roddy White.
Roddy White is a year older, though.
Yeah, but he's still better than a lot of the league. That's one of the better duos in the league.
They did lose Tony Gonzalez.
They did lose Tony Gonzalez, but I think it's going to be them and Tampa Bay vying for the second spot, but I still think it's Tampa Bay that takes it. Although I think we'll find out just how good this Atlanta team is in Week 1 because they're going to be facing against New Orleans.
Yeah.
So that'll be a good matchup.
As a proud Jimmy Graham fantasy owner, I have started him against those Tampa Bay linebackers, or those Atlanta linebackers that don't have Sean Weatherspoon. Okay, so moving on, I believe next is the NFC East with your well, might as well talk about the most talked about subject. That's not the Dallas Cowboys. It's the NFC East. Nick Foles.
Yes, Nick Foles.
Man, this guy is controversial.
And I don't get it because he played so well last year, and I loved it. I loved it so much.
I went back and looked at a lot of Nick Foles footage, and I kind of thought, like, I'm not proud to say this. I was the guy who brought into he's Chip Kelly's system quarterback. I looked into it. That guy was deadly accurate at points. Like, that Oakland game, he hit a few passes to Riley Cooper in that. And granted, it's easy to say, well, it's Oakland, but he had a few passes to Riley Cooper that were on the dime, amazingly accurate at times.
Yeah, I mean, as an Eagles fan, the difference between him and Michael Vick and even quarterbacks of the past is Nick Foles last season made great decisions. His biggest strength was that he was smart with the football. And he made good decisions and smart passes and he turned it over, obviously. He threw a couple of interceptions. But, I mean, he didn't look to turn it over. He didn't force passes.
No, put it this way. He reminds me a lot, and I mean this in a good way, of Alex Smith. Alex Smith, during that playoff run, and before he got benched by Kaepernick, people forget this, Smith was playing the best quarterback in the league. I think I read a stat that, well, this is old now, but that year, the best pass defense was Arizona. They had held Tom Brady to under 50% passing. They had held Aaron Rodgers to under 50% passing. Smith only had 2 incompletions against them. He was on fire. And he's also got that Alex Smith trait where he's deceptively quick. And I don't mean that because he's a white guy playing quarterback. I mean, like, he's very smart with his running in the way that Andrew Luck is. or Aaron Rodgers is too, where he's had a few rushing TDs where he's not afraid to run.
Yeah, I know. I think that once again comes down to his good decision making. He just knows when he has to do it, and knows when he has to get down, and knows when he can't run. And I think the media is looking at this and trying to create a controversy out of nothing. I mean, second year going in, maybe defenses have figured him out, but how do you figure out someone who makes good decisions?
Well,
you just, I guess, pressure him more, but
there is a fear there because that wasn't Nick Foles' rookie season. His rookie season was the year before where he threw more interceptions than touchdowns. He did not look good. I remember watching him on Sunday night, and granted, that was with Andy Reid, who I think we can all agree Chip Kelly's a better offensive coach than Andy Reid is, but he looked bad, honestly. I was not a fan of them starting Nick Foles at first. I thought for sure that this was a transition year and he would not be the starter. If you would have asked me when they said before the Oakland game when Nick Foles was starting or when Nick Foles was playing, if he would have been the starting quarterback, I would have said 100% no. And it's a testament to him that he's earned that spot. 27 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, came very close to winning against the Saints, but this is the one criticism I have of him last season. He might be a bit too conservative, by which I mean he has trouble throwing away the ball when the pressure comes. Yeah. He has, he took a bad sack in that Saints game at the end of the half that could have led to 3 points, and as you know, that game ended on a game-winning field goal for New Orleans, so those 3 points would have been big. But yeah, I like Philly. I think Philly probably had, even with a release of Deshaun Jackson, probably the best offseason of the 3 teams. Maybe
they did.
The Giants? Yeah. The one thing I can say about the Giants is, no, they made bad moves too. My bad. I forgot they re-signed they kept John Beeson. Yeah. Oh God, they signed Rashad Jennings, 29-year-old running back who's never a starting running back to starting running back money. Oh boy. And that's not even the worst decision in that division. Dallas cutting DeMarcus Ware, that's more of a bad decision throughout their history or throughout the past few years with the salary cap with Jerry Jones. What's your perception of Dallas, Eli?
I think Dallas is going to be mediocre again this year. I think Jerry Jones I think Jerry Jones is really bad for that team. Oh God, yes. Tony Romo is a good quarterback, but I don't think he's right in Dallas. I think they need to move on from him. I really do. I
see them cutting him at the end of the season, if not just because their salary cap can't handle his contract. I mean, his contract is huge. And don't get me wrong, I don't think any player in the NFL is worth the kind of money they've been giving quarterbacks. If the perception is that you're trying to win a Super Bowl, look at Seattle. Seattle had 3 of the best contracts in the league. They still have the best contract in the league in Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson's going to make less this year than Mike Wallace makes in one game. Mike Wallace is going to make twice as much as Russell Wilson, Russell Wilson makes in 1 year. Mike Wallace is going to make twice that in a single game. Now, Eli, this is a hard-hitting question. If you're making a team right now, would you rather take Russell Wilson or Mike Wallace?
Well, yeah. That is pretty tough, man. But I'm gonna have to go with Mike Wallace because of his veteran leadership.
God, don't get me started. As a Steelers fan, also Thomas and Sherman's contracts were very good. Sherman had a 5th-round pick contract, which is just amazing. I mean, and shout out to Pete Carroll. He's probably the best defensive backs coach in the league. I mean, Thomas and Sherman, you can make an argument that's the best safety cornerback duo in the league. McCourty and Revis is a close second, but I think those two are just amazing.
I agree wholeheartedly. Leach and Fields, man.
I would have getting back to the NFC East, I would have loved to see Nick Foles against that Seattle defense in the playoffs. It just would have been.
I would have loved to see that too, believe me. and then the Saints went and ruined that, and then.
Well, I think we both agree Philadelphia. This is their division to lose.
Yeah.
I feel bad for RG3 because I think he's going to get more hate than he deserves this season. That defense is still bad. Maybe Jay Gruden and Deshaun Jackson can help, but I think that defense is really bad, and Dan Snyder has a history of overpaying aging defensive players that play outside their scheme, continuing the tradition with Ryan Clark and Jason Hatcher this year?
Yeah, I think so too. You berate me on my sort of hate for RG3, but I just think I just think the season is prime for RG3 to lose his spot because you got a new coach,
really?
And you got Kirk Cousins.
And this is only his third year in the league, and he wasn't that bad last year. He's hurt most of the year.
Yeah, but I can see it happening. I definitely can see it happening.
I'm one of the few people I know not on the Kirk Cousins bandwagon, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't even want to talk about Dallas. If you're a Dallas fan, what do you have to look forward to this season?
Oh,
That's
gosh.
Jason Hatcher's last year?
That it's another year toward maybe a better time in your life. I don't know.
Des Bryant's going to be cool.
Jerry Jones is another year closer to death. I don't know.
It's not working too well for Raiders fans. Raiders fans used to say that all the time. I wouldn't say it's much better for them now. Maybe that guy who cleaned Jerry Jones' glasses that one time could be a better owner. I don't know. Hopefully he hires a GM. Real quick, I hate getting into the Dallas rumor mill. Okay, so if you're Minnesota and you've heard about this dumb Adrian Peterson story, and you know Jerry Jones is a guy who's a media whore and loves to get attention and thinks that one superstar will save his team, do you try to see if you can trade Adrian Peterson for Des Bryant and 2 first-round picks?
If I'm Minnesota, then knowing that Dallas is probably not going to be good this year, and guessing that there's a good chance they're not going to be good next year, I think I'd do that. And you get Des Bryant, who may be a bit of a head case, but he is a good receiver.
He's a very good receiver, and he's young.
Yeah, I think I'd do it. Although my fans will hate me for it because Des Bryant is not very well liked around the league, and
Adrian Peterson's beloved.
Yeah, I think it's good for the future.
The problem with Peterson, I think, comes up with, I think he's hit his peak. I mean, Do you really think he has a season where he passes that 2012 season?
No.
Me neither.
I think he'll be very productive. I still think he'll be one of the best backs in the league. I don't think he'll do that, though.
Plus, I believe this is his 7th or 8th year in the league. It's just never a good time for running backs, even no matter how good you are. Okay, so moving on. Ooh, perhaps the most competitive division in the NFL, the NFC West.
Oh, this one's the fun one. This is the fun division.
So you only start one place, and that is the Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks.
Mm-hmm. I think they're going to be really good again. I think they're going to be Super Bowl contenders again, although
a lot of haters. Oh, God.
Repeating, I think we'll get to that later, but I think they'll be in the midst of it again.
Yeah, a lot of haters are pointing out Baltimore and New York. Those teams lost a lot of their pieces after winning their Super Bowls.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, look at their paths. I think we could agree going into both of those playoffs that New York and Baltimore were not the best teams in the league.
No.
New York was a 9-7 team that made it on a Week 17 win against Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore was a team that had lost its last 4 games going into it, including to Charlie Batch. Superstar quarterback Charlie Batch for the Pittsburgh Steelers was one of their losses. And, they just got hot. But with Seattle, I mean, that whole season was there. I mean, I guess you could argue Denver was the best team in the league, but I always thought it was Seattle.
Yeah, I think, because that defense was just great.
That defense, that home crowd. I remember that game, the Monday Night Massacre, as it's known, of the New Orleans Saints, where it just. I mean, a lot of people thought the year before when they beat up on the Niners was bad. I thought that one was much more telling of just how good this team was. They dismantled New Orleans.
Yeah, looking at their departures, I mean, they didn't lose too many people that were that key. I mean, the names that stand out to me are Brandon Browner, Chris Clemens, Golden Tate, and Sidney Rice, but those weren't necessarily key components of that team either.
They also lost Red Bryant, who was one of the key role players. He was a captain on the defense, but like I said, not irreplaceable by any means. Chris Clemens, not irreplaceable. Sidney Rice really didn't do much. He retired after getting his ring this year, which was fine. He was their second highest paid player on the team, so I have no problems with them cutting him. Golden Tate, I always feel is kind of overrated just because I've never been a big Golden Tate fan. I think he's a great fit for Detroit, which we'll get into later, because I think he's probably the best number 2 Calvin Johnson's ever had. But yeah, Golden Tate, and if Percy Harvin is healthy, which is a big if, I mean, he easily replaces Golden Tate, and he's the best receiver Russell Wilson's ever had. So, yeah, this team doesn't have a lot of turnover. Like, look at Baltimore last year. All those pieces they lost, you know? They lost a lot. But, yeah, I can't see I used to want to say the Niners had a shot at it, but, man, half their defense is either arrested or injured. That's not good. Ray McDonald just had that domestic dispute thing. He's probably out a couple games. Navarro Bowman's coming off a torn ACL. He's out at least half the season from all reports. Aldon Smith is, I don't want to get into it because it's frustrating, but Aldon Smith is pretty dumb. I'll just say that. So the only linebacker that's going to be back there from that 3 dudes who was the best linebacking core in the league is Patrick Willis. Now, granted, Patrick Willis is amazing, but he's a year older.
He is a year older.
And is that offense enough to carry a defense that's decimated by injuries? They're also out cornerbacks, too.
I think that offense is going to be a lot better than it was last year, and I think it will be enough to carry them through, even though the defense is going to be held together by duct tape. Because mainly, Stevie Johnson. Bringing Stevie Johnson.
That was such an underrated trade.
I think, personally, that may be one of the best ones in the offseason as far as personnel. That's great.
People always say, well, Stevie Johnson really didn't do that much in Buffalo. Who'd Stevie Johnson have throwing the ball in Buffalo?
Now he's got Colin Kaepernick, who I think is better than anyone Buffalo had.
Also, I would say that being a receiver in San Francisco is a lot better than being a receiver in cold, desolate Buffalo. It's probably a lot easier to catch in San Francisco, I'd imagine. They also have Crabtree. They still have Vernon Davis, who's probably the best pass-receiving tight end in the league. Did they sign another wide receiver? I want to say they did. No, they did sign Brandon Lloyd.
And they also brought in safety Antoine Bethea, which I like that one too. Defense.
That was a solid pick. Let's not forget the big one here, Blaine Gabbert, though. And they still have Anquan Bolden, even though he's another guy who's in that year older club. So the receiving core is going to be a lot better. Kendall Hunter's hurt, which it sounds bad, but they finally get a chance to test out some of these new running backs, especially for when Frank Gore inevitably is done in that team. Carlos Hyde's a rookie. They drafted Marcus Lattimore last year, who was coming off a torn ACL, but was a pseudo first-round pick before his injury. LaMichael James will probably get some reps.
I've always liked LaMichael James first.
I have always loved LaMichael James. As a Pac-12 follower, I have been those Oregon guys are pretty good, as you can attest with your head coach.
Chip Kelly.
It just is kind of hard for me seeing this team beat Seattle. It's tough.
I think they're going to have some great games, though. San Francisco-Seattle games are always slobber knock.
Oh, yeah. I love, as a fan of the Steelers-Ravens rivalry from years past, I am a big fan of defensive smash-mouth contests. Not to mention personalities like Sherman, Kaepernick, Vernon Davis. Just adds to it. So we're both picking Seattle to win. Do the Niners take the one of the NFC wildcards?
I think they do.
Yeah.
I think they probably they give Seattle a run for that division. I think Seattle wins it though. But I think San Francisco takes the wild card. Yeah, 5.
Yeah. St. Louis and Arizona are better than people think,
they are.
I think. I love St. Louis's pass rush so much. I thought Aaron Donald was a crazy signing. It's the mentality that we'll be just the best in the league at this one thing. And, hey, that's how it worked for Seattle. They were the best in the league in the secondary, so they just figured, hey, and is Sean Hill that much of a downgrade at quarterback?
I think he is. I mean, I've loved Sam Bradford. It's terrible that his ACL blew again.
Yeah, I feel for the kid. And this was the year. This was the do or die year. it's tough for me to say Sean Hill is anything great because they don't. This isn't like last year with Josh McCown where they had Mark Trestman, who's a very underrated offensive coach, and also great receivers and a great running game. I mean, Brian Schottenheimer, I think, is in the league for one of the worst offensive coordinators in the league. I don't know how he still has a job. I think he's not very good. He does not know how to use Tavon Austin. And Arizona, big red elephant in the room for me is Carson Palmer. As a USC fan and a Steelers fan, I have followed Carson Palmer's career closely. I'm just not a fan of the guy. He has two great receivers in Fitzgerald and Floyd. And this might sound crazy. This might be Larry's last year there. His contract is very big.
Yeah, and I hope it's his last year there because I want him to go to a team that has a good chance of getting to the Super Bowl because I love Larry Fitzgerald. He's one of my favorite receivers in the league, one of my favorite people in the league, and I would love to see him not be Maurice Jones-Drew and just waddle away in Jacksonville and then go to the damn Raiders.
Why would you do that? I mean, maybe he goes home to Pittsburgh. Don't say that. He's like, hey, Pittsburgh beat me in the Super Bowl. They must know how to win. All right. Wow. Larry Fitzgerald and Antonio Brown. I got to stop. Okay. We're going to the NFC North. Another very interesting division. It's hard not to say Green Bay wins this, huh?
I would argue because I like the Bears.
I like the Bears a lot, too. Oh, boy. I love that receiving duo. I think that's the best 1-2 punch in the league. Jeffrey and Marshall are both two of the funnest players to watch. Do you like their their signings on defense?
You're talking about the Bears?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Jared Allen, I mean, taking him away from a division rival like that.
Yeah. He's old, though.
He's old, but I think he's still
that's a big contract.
Passer.
I think their Bears signing was Lamar Houston, a guy who I'd like to take my hat off for being one of the many who escaped the Raiders situation in Oakland. So shout out to Lamar Houston for going to a lot better situation. Their secondary is still not good, and in a division that has Calvin Johnson and Aaron Rodgers, that's never a good sign.
They have a good centerpiece in that secondary, though. They drafted Kyle Fuller. So.
Yeah. And Charles Tillman is still – he's old, but he's still pretty good.
Yeah.
I just don't like their safeties.
No.
Their safeties are not good.
And
I don't know – is Chris Conte still on that team?
I don't know. I think he is.
Dude was one of the worst safeties last year.
Yeah. And believe me, from an Eagles fan who had good corners in that Dream Team year, it mean a lot because we had terrible safeties and the corners got burned every play because of it. So
yeah.
Especially when we have a rookie corner out there like Fuller. He needs a veteran safety to help him out there on deep passes, and I feel like he might be left alone out there a lot of times.
Yeah, and also Lance Briggs is a year older. Shout out to Sacramento native Lance Briggs, but he is a year older. Also, shout out to one of my picks for Rookie of the Year. We didn't mention him in the Saints talk, but Brandon Cooks from Stockton, California, represent.
That's right.
And I think he's going to be huge for the Saints this year. He's going to fill that Darren Sproles role in my mind. The receiving role, obviously, not the running back role. My pick to take the 6C wild card is not Chicago, but it is in this division. And it's my team to turn it around, and it's my team with Rookie of the Year on it. I think after a harsh start from Matt Castle, where he goes through, I think, the toughest schedule in football. Let me pull it up real quick on my iPod so I can go through it. The schedule is ridiculously tough to start, and I think Matt Castle does not survive this in terms of his starting job with the Minnesota Vikings. I think Teddy Bridgewater, and I'm huge on the Bridgewater bandwagon, I think a lot of the hate he got was just because this draft was for some reason pushed back, which I hate that idea because I think we're going to see more guys like Teddy Bridgewater fall for inconsequential reasons. I think some of the criticisms you heard from such draft analysts as Mike Mayock were he's not the face of a franchise. How does that apply to what you do on a football field?
I know.
I guess how is he not? He's a nice guy. He's a good guy. He's not cocky.
Yeah.
People dig up, he almost quit football. He almost quit football because his mother was sick. I think that's a good person to have on your team than say, Des Bryant and his motherly issues, but I won't get into that. So their first 5 games are at St. Louis with that pass rush that's going to be pretty brutal.
Especially, yeah.
New England. Oh, boy. At New Orleans, Atlanta, and at Green Bay.
Oh, man.
Let's say they go 1-4 in that stretch.
Yeah.
Let's say people are just calling for Castle's head. Start Bridgewater starts trending on Twitter. Everyone's on the bandwagon. Cordell Patterson is looking like he can have a breakout season if he has the right guy. Peterson's thinking about it. They play next week against Detroit in that terrible secondary. Is it crazy that Teddy Bridgewater has a breakout game as named starter there?
I don't think it's crazy at all. And
I love Bridgewater.
I think you just predicted what's going to happen. Personally, I mean that's a tough first 5 games, and I think they go 1-4 and maybe they steal a game and go 2-3. But I don't see Matt Castle doing very well at all.
No, I don't. Bridgewater's and I don't like to overanalyze preseason, but I heard people say disappointing day from Bridgewater. He looked good. I thought
he did.
He had a game-winning drive against. I forget who he was playing against. He had a great game-winning drive. He looked awesome in that drive. He doesn't throw interceptions. He's in college last year. He was the best quarterback against the blitz in all of college football. Had like 75% completion rating, which is incredible. And then, so after that they have at Buffalo, who I think is in contention for number 1 overall pick. Then Tampa and Washington. I can see this team being like last year's Panthers or the year before's Redskins. You know, where they just get hot.
But can you really see them taking the 6th spot in the NFC?
That's the thing. The NFC is like the West in NBA. It's not quite as offsetting, but every team's competing on. Well, not every team, but there are a lot of teams competing. Chicago's going to be in there.
Yeah.
Detroit will probably be in there. NFC North has a good chance of supplanting the NFC West or of taking its spot back as the toughest division. I mean, all 4 of those teams are smelling playoffs, I think.
Yeah.
So that's tough.
I don't see Minnesota taking the 6th spot. Not this year, at least. I definitely see either Chicago or Green Bay taking that. Whoever doesn't lose the division. Whoever loses the division taking it.
Yeah, I think they had one of my favorite off seasons. They had, in my mind, probably the best head coaching signing, if you don't think Lovie Smith is, Mike Zimmer.
Oh, yeah.
Who's a fantastic defensive coach for Cincinnati. I know as a Steelers fan, I've had to deal with those defenses for a while now. I think a lot of their rookies are fixing to get better. They have Xavier Rhodes, who looks solid at times, and it's not good. Defensive backs are never good in their rookie year, and he looked pretty solid. They picked up. They signed Everson Griffin, who's going to be thrown into a starting role. He's looked good in spot duty. I'd like to see what he can do as a starter now that Jared Allen's not there. Cordell Patterson, I think everyone's expecting a breakout year from him. I like this team. I want to be on the bandwagon. There was another point I was going to bring up. I can't remember it right now, so let's move on. The AFC. So, wait, real quick. Our picks for the seeds are, in no particular order, Seattle's. It's going to be a playoff team. One of the wild cards is going to be San Francisco.
Yep.
We both agree Philly's probably going to win the East.
Yep.
Green Bay's going to win the North, probably.
I'll say Chicago, but...
Ooh. Okay. I want to. I really want to be with you on that. I can't bet against Rodgers. I'll go Green Bay. You say Chicago. I can't go back on my Vikings pick now, so they're my pick for the 6th seed. So you're taking Green Bay as the 6th, right? Yeah. Okay. And that's only 5. NFC South. We're both picking New Orleans, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I'll get into them more later. Teaser. AFC. The AFC South, which Vegas has the AFC North as the easiest division in football. As a Steelers fan, I'm offended. And as a watcher of the AFC South, I'm also offended. This team has the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Tennessee Titans and the Houston Texans, who were the number 1 overall pick last year. And how are they not the easiest division?
I don't think the Texans are as bad as everyone says.
No, I don't think they are either. I haven't been a fan of what Bill O'Brien's doing so far, though.
I think the Colts can definitely be in the running for one of the best teams in the AFC. I think the Colts can do that, but the Jags, but the Jags and the Titans are pretty bad.
Yeah. The Sean Green life begins in Tennessee.
Chad Henne in Jacksonville, look out.
Oh God. I think the Colts. I remember when they signed Ryan Grigson, and I watched interviews with him because I was big on Andrew Luck coming into the league. I wanted to see how they're going to build this team. I like rebuilding projects where it's almost like Boston in the NBA, the Celtics right now, where they're just starting from scratch, and they have a centerpiece, though. Mm-hmm. Andrew Luck. And I thought Grigson was going to be like Sam Presti of the NFL. He was talking about these numbers and everything. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to lie. I think that dude's one of the worst GMs in the NFL so far. He has not been good. He signed Eric Walden last season to a big contract. Eric Walden, whose game before that, the last game he'd played for Green Bay was him at one point just getting spun to the ground by Colin Kaepernick and watching him run past him. Mm-hmm. And thus far he's lived his reputation. Vontae Davis was a solid signing. I think Davis is actually one of the better corners in the league. Mm-hmm. He showed really good. He looked really good in that Denver game. Mm-hmm. And the big one, he traded a first-round pick for Trent Richardson.
Yeah.
When the Browns get the better of you in a trade, you know something went wrong.
But you know,
also, go ahead.
At the time of that trade, did anyone think that was bad? Like,
I thought it. I got caught in the hype. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah. But this team, Pep Hamilton, they talk about running the ball all the time. I just like to give them an update here. They have Andrew Luck, who's really good at football. He in his second season, I think he threw single-digit interceptions. He's very smart. He's very good. I think he's a few years away from being the best quarterback in the league. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why they're trying to build a run game with that in mind. They have a lot of good pieces. I will say that. T.Y. Hilton, I think, is going to be a solid piece for that team for years to come. Dwayne Allen's a really solid piece. Also, another bad thing, I've heard Hakeem Nicks, the coaching staff, have you been hearing the interviews about Hakeem Nicks?
I have not been hearing the interviews about Hakeem Nicks.
It has not been positive.
Really?
This is the same coaching staff that was saying, quote, I think Trent could come along as a top 5 running back in this league. This is the team that says good things about Trent Richardson, but still couldn't find anything good to say about Hakeem Nicks. They called him out of shape. I think one coach called him fat, flat out.
That's a shame. That's a shame because he was granted injuries, but he was so great for the Giants.
And then I don't know what happened to him. Listen, I wish the Colts all the best. Colts are one of my favorite teams. I love Andrew Luck. There's no question. I think if you're drafting a team, like let's say Madden Fantasy Draft style, you're starting over all the teams. Whoever has that number one pick, if I'm the GM, I'm taking Andrew Luck. Yeah. No question.
And how about it? The first overall pick in a draft who is hyped up to be all he can be is actually living up to that potential.
Yeah.
How about that?
Nice.
Think back to that. When's the last time something like that has happened?
Peyton? Am I wrong on saying that? Let's see. Courtney Brown was not. Courtney Brown. Wow, there's one. Tim Couch was not. Oh, boy, Cleveland. Alex Smith. I love Alex Smith, but he was not. Oh, God, I'm trying to think who else has there been. Sam Bradford, no. Cam Newton's been pretty good.
Yeah, but...
I like Cam, but he's not Andrew Luck.
He's not.
Yeah, it's been a while. That was a solid draft for quarterbacks. Unless you're Cleveland. Brandon Weeden, because... who would think a 28-year-old quarterback? By the way, going back to NFC North and NFC West real quick, did you know Matthew Stafford is actually younger than Colin Kaepernick?
How much?
Like by a few months, but still.
Oh, wow. Really?
Like Kaepernick's like 26. Yeah.
Wow.
He's going to be 27, I think, at the end of this year.
When was he drafted?
2011, Cam Newton draft.
That's crazy.
Stafford was drafted in 2009, I believe.
Wow.
It was the year after the Detroit 0-16 season. Anyway, back to the AFC South. Shows you how interesting this division is. I think Clowney and Watt in a few years are going to be insane together. Mm-hmm. I don't really see it now.
Watt got a nice payday recently.
Good for him. Yeah. Hey, I think he's the best defensive player in the league, probably.
And he's getting paid like it. I believe he has the richest defensive contract in history.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
I'm of the mentality, I mentioned this to the Seahawks, that you don't really win a Super Bowl with those big contracts on your salary, but I can understand why you have to lock that guy down, so I don't really hold the Texans out fault. I I would have offered Wade Phillips to see if he could stay, because I think Wade was a really good coach for them.
Definitely.
I'm really angry this team did not take Derek Carr in the draft, because I'm with Andre Johnson in that this team needs a quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
For as great as the Ryan Fitzpatrick era sounds,
thank you.
Yeah. They also made a panic move in trading for Ryan Mallett, which I love how did New England swing that one? Ryan Mallett looked like easily the worst quarterback on that roster, and they were able to trade him, actually, after the fact.
How did they?
Well, he learned under Tom Brady, though.
Yeah.
Let's not forget this. I mean, it's just by proxy he's going to be as good. Works for Matt Castle, after all.
You know, sometimes those things work out, just like when Kevin Cobb was traded for a second draft pick and Dominic Rodgers-Cromartie.
At least the Texans didn't do that bad of a pick. Bad of a job. So I think we agree this is the Colts' division to lose, even though I'm not a fan of their signings.
I think
this is the worst division in football. Go ahead.
I think they'll run away with it, personally. I think they'll run away with it.
I could see Houston going 8-8 probably.
I don't know. I think the Colts are going to smash their competition.
I think the best thing for Houston is for them to have a really bad season so they can draft a great quarterback. Can you imagine this team with Mariota? That'd be nice. AFC East, also known as New England East.
Yeah.
This is the Patriots division.
Yeah. It's
been for years. I think I'm one of the few guys who's not a big fan of Ryan Tannehill in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like Joe Philbin's a lot better offensive coach than people think. Philbin was the offensive coordinator for that Packers team that went 15-1, and it had Aaron Rodgers having people talk about him being one of the best quarterbacks ever. Now, granted, he is that good, but I mean, he's insanely good. Real quick, did you catch the stat last year that Rodgers' red zone numbers?
I did not.
115 touchdowns in the red zone. Guess how many interceptions?
How many?
3.
Wow.
For his whole career.
Wow.
That is ridiculous. Anyway, back to Joe Philbin. I think Philbin's really good of an offensive coordinator. Say what you will about his head coaching in terms of the Jonathan Martin, Richie Incognito situation, which we don't need to get into here. I think a lot of it is him just coaching up Tannehill. I've never been a fan of Tannehill, if I'm honest. Mm-hmm. Maybe he looks solid at points, but I just don't know if he's the guy who can take this division from New England. The Jets still have one of the best defensive coaches in the league. I'll give them that.
I think they have a great defense, too. I think they have a pretty good defense there in New York.
Yeah, but as someone who lived the Michael Vick life post-2011 and someone who Geno Smith last year, oof, I think he's the main reason these guys are all so hesitant to start their quarterbacks, him and Blaine Gabbert. Mm-hmm. Just, yeah. Geno Smith. They signed Decker, who honestly didn't get as big a contract as I thought he would, so that was a fine signing. Who else is their receiver on that team? Oh, boy. Didn't they draft one?
Talking about the Jets?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh, we sound so gloom talking about the Jets offense. Oh, they signed Chris Johnson. 2,000-yard rusher in 2009.
CJ2K.
Oh God, I'm done talking about the Jets. Oh boy, it gets better. Buffalo, who lost Defensive Rookie of the Year candidate last year, Kiko Alonso, to torn ACL, who lost their defensive coach, Mike Pettin, to the Cleveland Browns.
No Stevie Johnson.
Who lost Stevie Johnson. But hey, they traded their first rounder for Sammy Watkins, and if it's number 1 overall pick, Cleveland gets it.
Yep.
So even if you're bad, Buffalo, you have nothing to look forward to in the draft. I'm sorry. This team's need was not receiver. I love Sammy Watkins, but I do not know why you trade up for him. I mean, I just feel like they need offensive line. They need help everywhere but receiver really that bad. I mean, Stevie Johnson was never the greatest receiver in the league, but he was solid. I mean, E.J. Manuel. I liked who's the guy that was it Robert Woods they have from USC last year?
Yeah.
I thought he was solid.
Yeah.
They had a solid receiving core. I mean, you could have taken a lot of dudes with that pick. Offensive line help, cornerback help. They have no safety to replace Jarris Byrd, who I don't know why they let walk. They just seem to hate the guy, but I don't know.
I think the Bills are going to be bad. I think they're going to be very bad.
I think the Bills are top 5 pick potential for Cleveland.
Yeah.
Which sucks as a Steelers fan. And it's good for Cleveland fans, though, especially after the Josh Gordon situation. And New England, let's talk about them. I love what New England did.
Yeah.
They made one big signing, and it was a whopper. My favorite signing of the offseason was Darrelle Revis, and it's not close. I think it was NFL.com, had like a bracket where fans voted on who the best defensive or signing for offense and defense of the free agency was. Now, the bracket already loses credibility for putting Steve Smith as the best offensive free agent signing, which is laughable considering Deshaun Jackson was one of those signings. They had DeMarcus Ware as the best offensive free agent signing. Now, don't get me wrong, DeMarcus Ware is amazing. But for me, I would rather have the best cornerback in the league than the best linebacker in the league, in the modern NFL, especially in a conference that has Peyton Manning. Like, it's such an arms race. It's like the Soviets and U.S. between Denver and New England right now, just trying to one-up the other so they can just stay ahead in the AFC. Like, don't get me wrong, there are contenders in the AFC other than those two, but those two just hate each other.
Yeah.
The Welker signing obviously still rings loud. The Talib signing, which I think was one of the worst signings of the offseason, personally. I just think Revis with that team. And Brandon Browner, too.
Yes,
I forgot.
I know.
Oh, my God. Underrated
They
signing.
have a very good secondary now in New England.
Yeah, they do. McCourty's one of the more underrated safeties.
Yeah.
Vince Wilfork, they somehow were able to bring back, which was good for them because they really missed him last year.
Vince Wilfork.
They had a lot of – here's what scares me about New England. Last year, this team had one of the worst receiving corps in the league, especially at the beginning of the year, right? They get Gronk back, but then lose him a few weeks later to injury, torn ACL. Their 3 best players on defense all got hurt. Wilfork and Mayo were out for the season, and Talib got hurt and came back as not even the same player. I remember Steve Smith burning him in that Monday night game. Despite all that, they're still 12-4, and at one point had a good shot at winning the first seed in the East or in the AFC, and then made it to the AFC Championship game. So despite all that turnover, they also lost Wes Welker, who was a pretty big piece. Despite all of that, despite all of those things, they were still – also injuries to Danny Amendola. Despite all those things, they were still second in the AFC, second seed, had a shot being first, beat Denver in the regular season, one of my favorite games of the year. Had really an amazing season, all things considered, and everything that they were bad at last year I think is better. I think their receivers are all 1 year older, which is huge. I think Amendola is going to be healthier this season. Revis obviously helps that secondary. Their defenders are back. Who'd they lose? They lost LeGarrette Blount, who, I mean, I'm a Steelers fan. I love the signing of Blount, but still, I mean, it's not like he's irreplaceable.
Yeah.
And Brandon Spikes, who was a mediocre linebacker, I tend to think. They have Jamie Collins also, who's another dude who could break out, had a big playoffs. So I like New England.
I do too. I very much like New England. I think they'll win that division easily, and I think they're going to challenge the Broncos in the AFC for the.
Am I crazy to think that with that division they go 13-3?
I think that's reasonable.
I mean, they're stacked, and they play their toughest games are Denver and Green Bay, but even then, I mean, they have Revis. It changes so much. I can't believe this team. It still hasn't dawned on me that they have Darrelle Revis. That's just insane. He changes like the complexion of what you can do on defense so much. Okay, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh boy, not happy to be talking about. Oh wait, nope. AFC West.
Yes.
Another dire division.
Oh yeah.
Oakland's starting Derek Carr.
Yes, they are. That's all I've heard about down here.
I love it. Start the car. Let's go.
Vroom, vroom.
I like Derek Carr. I think he had an awesome preseason. I think the fact that Houston just didn't draft him for his last name was ridiculous. I think, why not, you know?
Yeah, why not?
This might be Dennis Allen and Reggie McKenzie's last year, so why not? I mean, Matt Schaub has shown you nothing in the offseason, or in the preseason. I think it's crazy with all the talk of the other 3 quarterbacks that this guy's going to be the one starting first, but still, hey, he's looked good. That's one thing to be optimistic about in Oakland. What about
Khalil Mack?
Oh boy, Yeah, actually, yeah, there's two things. Wow, that might be a record in this decade. Khalil Mack, a solid draft pick. I think that might be their best draft pick since Namni Asamoah.
I love that pick. I do.
Yeah, wow. That was a great pick. There's talk that this guy might be the best guy in the draft. He's the one dude who might pass Clowney. He's looked good in the preseason. And, we'll see. I'm optimistic. They did sign, they continue to have the all-2000 defense team with Charles Woodson still there. Justin Tuck, who I'm sure you're glad to have out of your division, is now there. Lamar Woodley, former Steeler linebacker, was going to say great, but I psychoed linebacker, is now there. So, yeah, maybe there is some optimism. I think there's a snowball's chance that they take this division from Denver or even get a wild card, but we'll see.
I don't see them doing much. I think they're going to be at the bottom of the league again. I mean, they are the oldest team in the league.
No way, really? Oh, yeah, I guess that defense.
League.
How does a team that has this many first-round or top 10 draft picks be the oldest team in the league? Oh, God. Who were they? Yeah, I guess Pittsburgh had a lot of turnover. Oh, man. I really thought we were going to win that title this year.
And being that bad, you don't want to be the oldest team in the league. That's the problem.
They've got leadership now. That's the thing. They have the most cap room of anybody, but no one wants to play for the Raiders. They had so much cap room finally, but the Raiders have just soured on the league so much that no one wants to play for them anymore.
Yeah.
Jared Valdir walked to Arizona. He was one of their better offensive tackles. We talked about Lamar Houston earlier. Yeah. Kansas City, I think everyone's predicting them to fall off. I like that defense, and I like Jamal Charles, but they did lose a lot of pieces. They had one of the worst off seasons.
Yeah. I think Andy Reid's doing well there, especially with Alex Smith doing his thing. And you got Jamal Charles, who is arguably the best back in football.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
I'd argue your guy, LaShawn McCoy, for that, but go ahead.
But I think they'll drop off. They still have to play the Broncos twice a year.
Yeah.
And the Chargers are no joke either.
Really? I'm one of the few guys who's not on the Chargers bandwagon. Maybe it's because I'm a Steelers fan and I saw how they got into the playoffs. But, okay, real quick recap. This team got in the playoffs. They needed to win.
Mm-hmm.
And Pittsburgh needed three other teams, including Baltimore and Miami, to lose. Baltimore and Miami lost, and Pittsburgh won. So I'm happy. I'm like, no way. We have like a 5% chance of making the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And we just need San Diego to lose. And I turn on San Diego Chiefs, and I hear Andy Reid sitting his guys because they clinched everything they can. I'm just thinking, damn it.
Mm-hmm.
But I watched the game anyway, and sure enough, the Chiefs' backups look amazing. Chase Daniel looked solid. Everyone, they're beating San Diego. Ryan Suckup goes to kick the game winner, and he misses. And San Diego wins in overtime, one of my least favorite experiences as a football fan ever. This team made the playoffs after barely winning against backups, including Chase Daniel at quarterback. That's not good.
I mean,
the
Chargers, I think they got better, though, personally. I mean, they didn't lose anyone.
I think they signed Brandon Carr, which was a very good signing.
And they also signed Brandon Flowers, who is one of the underrated cornerbacks in the league.
I'm sorry. Brandon Flowers, I meant. Brandon Carr was a Cowboy now. Or he's been a Cowboy for the past few years. Brandon Flowers, which was an amazing signing. Yeah. I don't get why in the world they signed Donald Brown. They have two great running backs in Woodhead and Matthews. Mm-hmm. Donald Brown was the best running back on the Colts. So... For what that means with Trent Richardson as your competition. I don't know. I just don't think they beat Denver last year, and I will give Mike McCoy credit. He had a great game plan. Keep the ball out of Peyton Manning's hands by keeping it on the offense, but that's easier said than done twice a year. And even then, I mean, they play New England. I don't think they can beat New England. They play a lot of teams. I just don't see it. Let's be honest, Denver's winning this division.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. I'm just saying that I think the Chargers are going to be better than you think they're going to be.
Yeah, and a lot of people do.
Yeah.
I could be very wrong about San Diego. I love Phillip Rivers.
Yeah.
I like Jay Cutler a lot, too. I think people give those two guys too much crap. But Rivers looked amazing last year. Mike McCoy, I didn't think was a good head coaching signing when they did it, but it's really great.
Yeah.
And I think getting rid of North Turner was one of the best moves that organization ever made. Granted, they made it about 5 years too late, but yeah. So this team's in the right direction. Maybe Manti Te'o takes a step forward. I love Keenan Allen, who I think should have been Offensive Rookie of the Year, but I won't get into that. Yeah, they could be good, but Denver. I remember before that New England signed Darrelle Revis, I thought Denver's offseason just scared me to the core. DeMarcus Ware, how did this team even have the cap salary to get that guy? I mean, they had already signed T.J. Ward, which was a really good signing. And T.J. Ward adds another element to that New England game, by the way. T.J. Ward was the guy who tore Rob Gronkowski's ACL. One of the more brutal hits I've ever seen. They signed Talib to a contract that I think is going to look like one of the worst in the league in a few years after Peyton Manning's gone. 5 years, some absurd amount of money for a guy who's only shown flashes of being a great corner. Not a fan of the Talib signing. And then Dallas cuts DeMarcus Ware, and immediately everyone says he's going to Denver.
Yeah.
And sure enough, he's in Denver.
I think that's a great move, though. I think DeMarcus Ware.
Oh, God. No, don't get me wrong. That's a scary good move. So him and Von Miller. People forget Von Miller tore his ACL in the playoffs. He was not there for that Super Bowl.
Although I don't think he would have made that much of a difference.
No, probably not. But
he would have been 35-3.
Listen, isn't it crazy how much that Super Bowl soured Denver for a lot of people? In Week 3, Seattle plays Denver at 1 o'clock. That is a Super Bowl rematch from last year between what people consider the two best teams in the conferences. It's happening at 1 o'clock. That speaks volumes. I think that game's going to be interesting. Really interesting.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. I think it'll be fun.
I think it's going to be the Super Bowl we wanted. I really do. Because Denver's going to have a chip on his shoulder. Peyton Manning's going to look right back at that film and and Seattle's not going to want to lose. Seattle's going to want to show people that it was not a one-time thing. We are the best team. That game's going to be awesome. That's another thing about the NFC West or AFC West. They play the NFC West this year. They also have the Niners on their schedule, St. Louis, and I think
it'll be a test.
Put it this way. I don't think it's inconceivable that New England takes the number 1 seed from these guys.
I don't think it is either. Based on the schedules, I don't think it's that crazy.
And listen, this is just statistically true. I mean, through the years you look at it, Peyton Manning's not going to be as good as he was last year. It's just impossible. He can't be that good.
It's hard to beat 55 touchdowns and 10 receptions.
Not only that, he played really easy defenses. No one's talking about this. The toughest defense he played was Kansas City, which, granted, he played really good against. But, I mean, you look at some of those defenses. He played the Jaguars. He played the entire AFC South, who, other than Houston, has pretty terrible defenses across the board. The AFC West do not inspire great defense, especially San Diego. And he had that 7-touchdown game against Baltimore, which, I mean, without that, and granted, 48 touchdowns is still a lot, but without that, I mean, he doesn't break the record. So, part of me wants to pick against Denver, but then I remember they have DeMarcus Ware and they play again in the AFC West, so they're my pick for 2nd seed. New England's my pick for 1st seed. Let's get to my division. Final division talk. The AFC North. The so-called worst division of football in Las Vegas.
I'm probably gonna disappoint you and agree with that. It's the worst division this year.
I just don't think it's worse than the AFC South. And at one point, I had this team sending 2 teams to the playoffs. I think I'm wrong now. I just don't see who are the wild cards for you in the AFC.
In the AFC?
Yeah.
I think the Chargers take one.
Okay.
And I think
these divisions are so stacked for one team.
Oh, man.
That's why I don't think it's crazy. Here's what I think. I don't think it's crazy that Pittsburgh and Baltimore both make the playoffs.
Oh, well, okay. Well, why do you say that?
Because I think they both had amazing drafts. Granted, we might be losing Martavis Bryant for the season, and I love that dude, and I'm really, really scared that we are. But I think Cincinnati's my pick to fall off the most. I think they might be Houston or Atlanta this season. I just think I don't like the Dalton contract because I really thought they should have been looking for a replacement because that's the weakest part of the team is quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually kind of thought they might go with McCarron, but apparently not. I think losing your offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator are never good, especially when one of those is probably top 5 in the league.
Yeah.
And Jay Gruden might be maybe top 10. I mean, he made Dalton look good at points, I thought. I like Jay Gruden.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, they have a lot of pieces on defense still. That defense is still really good. They still have Geno Atkins who's coming back from it. But both their defense players are coming back from injury, Geno Atkins and Leon Hall.
Mm-hmm.
And Leon Hall is another guy, a year older. Never good. And he's had a lot of injuries. Maybe Cincinnati. Am I crazy for thinking this division sends 3 teams to the playoffs?
You're a little crazy for thinking that, I think. Me personally, I think the Bengals take the division.
Okay.
Maybe the Steelers or the Ravens get that 6th spot. I don't see it, though. I personally think it's going to come from the New York Jets.
Oh, you shut your mouth right now. New York?
New York Jets at the 6th spot. I think their defense is good enough.
Am I crazy in thinking Pittsburgh has potential to be a top 10 offense this year?
I think that's your homerism kind of.
It might be, but dude, Antonio Brown looked really amazing last year.
Yes.
I think Ben's still a great quarterback. I don't like that we still have Todd Haley. That's my biggest reservation. We have Le'Veon Bell a year older.
Mm-hmm.
Running backs statistically get better in their second year. I like Le'Veon Bell. He was hurt a lot of last year. LeGarrette Blount was a solid signing, a lot better backup than Jonathan Dwyer. Our offensive line, David DeCastro, Marquise Pouncey's back after tearing his ACL in the first game last year. I don't think it's inconceivable to think we make the wild card.
It's not inconceivable. They're just not my pick, personally.
I could see that. Our defense looks really old. I love Troy Polamalu. He's probably my favorite Steeler ever, but his contract is ridiculous right now. Mm-hmm. He looked terrible in that New England game other than a forced fumble.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God, that New England game. I think Ike Taylor is a year older. I like Shazier and Jones. Jarvis Jones was a guy who was considered a top 5 pick before an injury derailed him. He did not look that great last season, but I think a year in LeBeau's system will help. I still think Dick LeBeau might be the best linebacker coach in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Shazier was not a pick I was a fan of just because I want Dennard because we need secondary help, but he's looked great in the preseason. He's looked amazingly fast. I think Shazier and Jones are what hinges on our defense being any good this year. So, I have hope. And so, underrated story about Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
They did not. They said they were going to table contract discussions with Ben until after the season. I think I've looked into this a bit. I think that if Pittsburgh doesn't make the playoffs, rebuilding starts. We cut Ben. We cut Troy Polamalu. Everything just starts over.
Mm-hmm.
If we do make the playoffs, we continue to build from here. Do you think I'm crazy in thinking that?
I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think if you don't make the playoffs and really did not perform well, I think they blow up the team. I think they start over. But if they make the playoffs, I think they look at what they can do and maybe have a big offseason next offseason and try and build something to be a true contender, not just make the playoffs.
So here's an interesting question. Is Mike Tomlin still the coach if the rebuilding theory goes? You there?
Yes. What?
Is Mike Tomlin still the coach if they go through rebuilding?
Yeah, I think so. Because I think he's still one of the better coaches in the league. And,
I do like Mike Tomlin.
It's
great special teams player too.
It's really up to him if he wants to stay through a rebuilding process. I think it's up to him.
Yeah. I think Dick LeBeau retires after this year.
Yeah.
Maybe regardless, which will be a sad day in the Hickman household, I have to say. I still think Dick LeBeau. I think if there's a dude who goes into the Hall of Fame as a coordinator, it should be him.
Mm-hmm.
So, Baltimore we didn't discuss. It's kind of weird we haven't talked about Cleveland at all. I think Cleveland's going to be bad.
I think
losing
really
Flash
bad.
Gordon hurts really bad.
Do you think Johnny Manziel starts by the end of the season?
Kind of hope not, because he's going to look bad. He has no receivers to throw to. Josh Gordon and Johnny Manziel. I remember I was so scared when that happened. And then Josh Gordon did Josh Gordon things, and Josh Gordon is now not playing the season. I actually drafted Josh Gordon in my fantasy draft like a week before they announced that they were upholding the suspension and hoped that they won it. Don't worry, he's been cut. So Baltimore, people said Pittsburgh had the best draft. I almost argued Baltimore, which hurts so bad. Baltimore's draft was so good, I thought. C.J. Mosley was such a great pick for linebacker. Dude's basically going to be their Ray Lewis. Well, that would be the hope, obviously. They drafted only positions they needed. They were really, as bad as people think last offseason was, this one was much better. I think Baltimore kind of comes back this year. This team was still one game away from making the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
As stagnant as that offense was. Plus, they made a great, I think Gary Kubiak's a better offensive coordinator than Jim Caldwell is. Gary Kubiak was an offensive coordinator on those Denver teams with John Elway and Terrell Davis. And the hope is that he gets Ray Rice back on track, though. Let's not get into Ray Rice's offseason on here. Your opinion on Baltimore?
I think they got better. I definitely do. I personally like their free agent signings. I think Steve Smith is,
Oh, God. Steve Smith. Go ahead.
I think he'll help, definitely. And then also Owen Daniels, the tight end they brought in. I like that a lot. Mix him up with Dennis Pitta, and I think you're going to have a nice 1-2 punch there. But I don't think they're going to be good enough to win the division. I still think the Bengals are going to do that. Maybe I actually think they have a better chance at winning the 6th wild card spot than the Steelers do.
I could see. I hold no ill will at you for thinking that. I think Harbaugh's still an amazing coach. Here's a question: is Harbaugh better than his brother? Is John Harbaugh better than Jim? Because Jim gets a lot of credit where I feel John doesn't. John is 0-2 against Jim.
Jim Harbaugh's kind of an asshole.
I can't argue with you there.
No, I think Jim is the better coach.
Jim's an amazing quarterback coach. I think he's the best in the league at it. He made Alex Smith look like the number 1 pick for a while there. I honestly think instead of Blaine Gabbert, they should have tried to get Terrell Pryor from Oakland and see what they could have done with him. But all right, moving on. So that's our prediction. So real quick, no particular order for the division winners.
Yeah.
It's New England, Denver, Indy, and you're picking Cincinnati?
I'm picking Cincy for the North.
Screw it. I'm going balls out. Pittsburgh.
Oh, come on.
I think I gotta stick with my Cincy's gonna fall off pick. I'm not a fan of Marvin as a head coach. I really am not. I've watched him long before this whole run they've went on. Goes, who are the wild cards? Oh, this is tough. I'll go Baltimore for one of the wild cards. You're gonna hate me for this. I'll go Houston after I talked about them.
Oh, really?
That's the other wild card. I think they're like Kansas City last year.
With Ryan Fitzpatrick.
I don't think Fitzpatrick's bad enough to make if this defense is as good as it can be. I don't know if Fitzpatrick's bad enough to cost him. I could see him being like a Mark Sanchez in the 2009 Jets role, or like 2010 Jets role. Not AFC Championship, but like a guy who just won't screw you over.
I'm going to disagree with you wholeheartedly on those wild cards.
I don't blame you for it.
I'm going to go San Diego for the 5th spot, and I'm going to go with the New York Jets at number 6.
You're calling me crazy for my Houston picks, Mr. New York Jets over here. Granted, Rex Ryan's a great defensive coach, but all right, we're going to skip Defensive Rookie of the Year since it kind of sounds crazy not to pick Jadeveon Clowney.
You could argue for Khalil Mack.
You could argue for Khalil Mack. I just feel like Oakland's going to be so putrid that it's just going to sour a lot of people's opinions of them.
And Clowney's at more of an impact position where he's going to get noticed a lot more.
I'd like to see D Ford do it just because he was talking all this crap on Clowney. It would be kind of cool. Plus, he's playing on Kansas City, which is a really solid defense. Anyway, interesting one. Maybe my most interesting award of the year. Offensive Rookie of the Year.
What's your pick?
I want to go Brandon Cooks. And he's
local boy.
Probably the smarter pick. Not just local. He's playing in the New Orleans Saints offense. That might be one of the better fits of the draft. I mean, Dude's getting thrown to by Drew Brees. It's not just because he's local. If Sammy Watkins was picked by the Saints, I'd pick him over. Sammy Watkins went to Buffalo though. I'm picking Teddy Bridgewater though. Flat out. I think my prediction with Minnesota comes to life, and I think if he does, you can't pick anyone but Bridgewater.
You are basing that on the fact that he'll start.
I'm basing it on the fact that Matt Castle's not going to survive that onslaught of a starting schedule, and they'll put in Teddy Bridgewater, and Bridgewater will look good. And I think Bridgewater was the best quarterback in this draft. I still think that.
This one's tough for me. It's between Sammy Watkins and Brandon Cooks for me. But I think I'm gonna have to go with Brandon Cooks because he has a better quarterback.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong there. Who were some other offensive players? Ebron's probably underrated. I think Ebron finally gives Detroit a good tight end. I think Detroit's passing offense. Mike Evans was another. Oh man, there were some great receivers in this draft. Your boy Jordan Matthews, I think, is a contender. Honestly, I like Jordan Matthews. I liked him. I was kind of hoping Pittsburgh got him. I like Jordan Matthews a lot. I just didn't like our draft at all. Our draft disappointed. You're soured on that first round,
I know.
Which I can't blame you. That might have been the worst first round pick of the draft. But yeah, I like Jordan Matthews. Pop quiz: do you know who Jordan Matthews was related to?
No.
Jerry Rice. I think he's his nephew. If I'm not
really.
mistaken. Hey, there's worse players to learn from. Just saying. Most improved player, which I think should be an award. One of my favorite awards in the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
Who's most improved?
Most improved.
This one's tough.
It is tough.
I'm kind of leaning towards Cordarrelle Patterson to stick with my Vikings pick, just because I think Patterson has like a Percy Harvin-like feel to him, where he can just be used so many places, like a bigger Sproles too, almost. We didn't even talk about Darren Sproles' great offseason signing for the Philadelphia Eagles. By the way.
Darren Sproles is my favorite signing of the Eagles offseason.
Oh God,
him and Shady.
He was your favorite move.
Him and Shady in the backfield. I mean, look out.
The Chip Kelly offense.
Yeah.
So who's most improved for you?
Gotta think about this one.
If it's not Cordarrelle Patterson, who do I think? It's tough. Who are some rookies who could shine this year? Le'Veon Bell might be a contender for this.
I think
Kayvon Austin, if they start using him right. Go ahead.
This might be ballsy.
Go ahead. I've been ballsy this whole podcast.
I am gonna slap my Eli seal of approval on Ryan Tannehill of the Dolphins.
Oh man. Okay. I'm not a fan of Tannehill. A lot of people are. Don't get me wrong. It's very possible. Just not I've never been a fan of Ryan Tannehill. Pop quiz: who replaced Tannehill at the college you played at?
Don't know.
Johnny Manziel. MVP. Let's go with your sleeper pick first for MVP. Then we'll go for our predictions.
I'm gonna go with Nick Foles. Nick Foles.
You know, I lambasted you for that. I did.
Foles.
Here's the problem with Nick Foles. His ceiling and floor are so far apart, you know? Like, he can be a guy in 5 years. You could see them signing Nick Foles to, like, his third team.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we want to try to get that 2013 Nick Foles out of him, you know? Like, I could just see that happening. But at the same time, I was rewatching some of that film, and like, I could see him being like a Brady, like just a guy who people just passed on. Yeah. He's just got a chip on his shoulder for it. I hear in interviews with the guy. I don't think you're as crazy as I thought you were before, and I apologize for thinking you were before.
Yeah, it's like, I'm going to explain the rationale behind it. I just think he's got a lot of weapons on that offense. He's got a run game that has to be respected.
Yeah.
He's got great weapons to pass to. Jeremy Maclin, they lost to Sean Jackson, but they got Jeremy Maclin, they got Brett Selleck, they got Zach Ertz, they got Riley Cooper.
Ertz is a prime candidate for that most improved category, too, for me. Fantasy owner. I had a choice between him and Selleck, and I took Ertz, so I'm hoping that pans out.
I'm still a big Brett Selleck fan, but and I think I agree with you on that Brady thing. I think Chip Kelly and Nick Foles might become the NFC's Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. And the Homer cap is on for that one, but I firmly
You heard it here first, folks. The future of the NFC. This isn't my pick, but this is an interesting question. If a running back were to win MVP again, which I thought was almost impossible until Peterson did it a few years ago, who would it be? I'm going to say Shady McCoy.
Really?
I think Shady McCoy's the best MVP candidate on that team. Yeah.
He did recently say he's going to rush for 2,000 yards.
Peterson also has said a lot of crazy stuff, so it's fine. I honestly, if I'm taking one running back in the league right now, it's LaShawn McCoy.
Yeah.
I love Jamal Charles; it'd be close, but I think I'd have to go with McCoy. I just love how much of a versatile threat he is.
To win MVP, really?
If there were a running back that was going to, he's not my sleeper pick. My sleeper pick is Andrew Luck.
I like that one. I like the Andrew Luck one. I like that one.
I just think he's a future MVP, and if not, why not just start here? I mean, he's only had 2 years. That second year was amazing. He was really good last year. And I think if this team's going to be that good, they need him to be MVP caliber, you know? But he's not who's your main pick? Who's your big pick?
My big pick for MVP?
Yep.
Is it too much to rely on the shoulders and arm of Peyton Manning again, 37 years old?
Here's my problem with Peyton. It's not that he's 37. It's just that I think he's going to be living in that shadow of that last season, you know? Like, let's say Tom Brady after the 50 touchdown season doesn't tear his ACL but throws 42 touchdowns. You think he's MVP?
Nah.
Me neither. And I don't know if Peyton it's just tough for me to say. It's not a bad pick, but if I were to bet $100 right now, it'd be tough for me. I think I'd put Rodgers ahead of him in the discussion.
Really? Aaron?
But he's not my pick.
Yeah.
But if I were, I think I'd put Rodgers ahead.
I just think after getting embarrassed in the Super Bowl, I think Peyton Manning is going to come back angry and motivated, and he is going to want to just rip into every defense he comes across.
Do you remember Peyton Manning's last season with the Colts, where there were points like not his injured season, the season before, where
the one where he actually played.
Yeah, I remember there's points where people were saying it was over for him. He had like 9 interceptions in 3 games at one point. There was a game against New England where he played where he had like 4 interceptions. He just didn't look that great. That was coming off a season where he won his MVP in 2009, had an amazing season, went to the Super Bowl and lost to the Saints. So I don't know if Peyton Manning losing necessarily instigates that he's going to be better this year. Maybe I'm wrong. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's a very real possibility. If I had to put $100 on it, I don't know if I'd feel comfortable with Peyton Manning.
I can totally understand that. It's just, I think he's going to give it one last shot. I think this is going to be his last shot to try and do something.
And maybe he's the Spurs of last year, you know? Maybe he comes back like they did and just proves me wrong and shuts like all the critics up. Maybe he does. It's just tough for me to put money on it.
Oh, I understand that completely.
My pick is one that you've lambasted. I'm picking Drew Brees.
Okay.
And here's why. I think Brees has another year back with Sean Payton. I think there's not a lot of talk about this, but is Drew Brees the greatest player in NFL history not to be MVP?
I would have to get some names of players who haven't won MVPs.
Yeah, okay. Quarterback-wise, though. Of our era, I think he's the greatest player to never win MVP.
Of our era? Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I mean, I always like to think, what is Drew Brees' legacy going to be? Because he's a guy who, obviously when people think of this generation, it's going to be Manning and Brady. I'm not wrong in saying that, I don't think.
No, you're not.
And I just feel like Brees doesn't get the love he deserves. He's amazing. He's incredible. He has more yards than Tom Brady. He's like right there with some of the guys. And like if you look at all their, I think there's a like stat chart where it shows like everyone, like the best quarterback receiver combos. It's like Manning and Harrison, Brady and Moss probably, maybe. I don't know. They weren't together that long. Montana and Rice, Young and Rice, and then you see like in the top 5, Brees. And Colston. I don't think I'm going out on a limb here. Sorry to Marcus Colston fans, but I don't think he's as good as those guys are.
No.
And I think this is the year. I think that argument picks up steam as the season goes along of Drew Brees. Because he has had 2 seasons where he almost could have been MVP. The Rodgers season where he broke the passing yard record, but Rodgers was just out of his mind, so he won it. And the 2009 season where they were when they had 13 straight wins, but everyone soured on them because they lost those last 3 games. I just think that the argument gained steam like it did for like Karl Malone back in the 90s, where like people were like, "Wow, Karl Malone's never been MVP. Let's give it to him," which I don't think is a good way of thinking. But I just kind of think it's. And also, does anybody like let's say the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL? I don't know. People might disagree with that. I think it's Rodgers, Brady, Manning, Brees, and Luck. Would you agree with that?
I'd agree with that.
That number 5 is kind of tough with Luck. But anyway, do any of them have a receiving threat as dangerous as Brees does with Jimmy Graham? You could maybe argue Peyton's, but I think Peyton's more versatile in his receiving threats, you know?
I'm going to say no. I don't think they've had that good solid threat there.
Right. Plus, Brees is going to have, I would imagine, a solid defense behind him. I just think New Orleans is going to be really good. I think they're honestly vying for a number 1 or number 2 seed this year.
Really?
They were. If Carolina didn't come up the way they were, they're number 2 seed last year. True. So, and I think we both agree Carolina's going to be worse. So, Drew Brees is my pick. Let's get on to this. Conference champions. Who are they going to be? You go first.
Okay. Conference champions. I think the NFC Championship game.
Yeah. Is it a rematch?
No.
Oh. Okay.
I don't think Seattle gets there.
Me neither. Go ahead.
I don't think Seattle gets to the Conference Championship game. I think the Niners do. I think the Niners get to the championship game, and I think they're facing off. See, you've got me buying Saints stock now.
That's my conference championship too.
I think it'll be Saints-Niners in the NFC Championship game.
Okay, I agree. Who's winning?
Niners.
That's exactly okay. We're on point so far. I'm going New England and Denver for my AFC rematch.
New England and Denver.
I can't see the Colts getting there with their defense, and I don't think anyone in the AFC North has a shot in hell.
I want to believe in the Colts to get to the conference championship.
I do too. I love Andrew Luck, but there's so many bad pieces on that team. Why is Eric Walden on this team? Why is Hakeem Nicks on this team? Well, I can't really blame the Hakeem Nicks signing. Why is Trent Richardson still on this team? It's hard for me to see them getting past Denver or New England with the pieces they have.
I'm going to agree with you. I think it's going to be Denver, New England.
Here's an interesting fact. The past 3 years, the NFC Championship and AFC Championship have both had New England and the Niners in it. Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
That being said, they have never faced off in the Super Bowl yet. That changes this year. I have New England beating Denver in the AFC Championship game.
I have Denver going back to the Super Bowl, man.
Okay.
I'm buying Peyton stock all the way to the bank.
Peyton Manning has never been to back-to-back Super Bowls, my friend.
Yeah, I know.
Granted, that's a very obscure stat. It's probably one that holds little to no merit, but still, granted, it is a better team. Von Miller is going to be healthy. I just think if New England wins that number 1 seed, that means this game's in Foxborough instead of Denver, like it was last year. And in that situation, Foxborough in January. I mean, I don't like to buy into the snow hurts Peyton stock, but I think Tom Brady's a better quarterback in the cold than Peyton Manning. That's just kind of fact. And I like New England running the ball more in the cold than I like Monty Ball. I trust Steven Ridley more than Monty Ball. So I'm going New England and San Fran. You're going Denver and San Fran, right?
Yes.
Who wins Super Bowl? Flat out, we'll end it on this.
Denver, San Fran. Oh, man. I'm going to go with the Niners.
Really?
Yeah.
So much for buying in on Peyton's.
I know. I don't think it's a blowout again, but I think the Niners.
I'm pretty sure Peyton would have to retire. He would not live that. I mean, oh my God, the hatred that will come his way, the vitriol. I'm going New England, flat out.
Really?
Buying in all the time. Tom Brady joins the four. First time since 2004.
That's right.
I think this team was predicated on good defense. And I think this is the best defense Tom Brady's had since those teams, honestly. And I'm just imagining Colin Kaepernick, Michael Crabtree being completely taken out of the game. Can you really think Michael Crabtree can beat Darrelle Revis?
No.
And Brandon Browner on Bolden/Stevie Johnson/whoever. And I saw the way that Bill Belichick was able to take out Jimmy Graham. I just don't see that offense. Maybe the defense, and granted, New England lost to a team that was very similar to the Niners and the Giants defense that get after the quarterback, but I just don't see Kaepernick and that offense being able to stop New England's defense or being able to get past New England's defense. So I have New England as my Super Bowl winners. Eli has the San Francisco 49ers winning 6, excuse me. I forgot they lost that last one.
Yeah.
So that's going to be it for us, guys. Thank you for listening to our first show. I understand it was very long. I don't think our other ones will be as long.
Yeah.
In fact, I can almost guarantee it.
We'll get better at this.
Yeah, we will get better at this. This one was very long because we were previewing the entire NFL season. We'll be back next week, I think, right?
Yes. We'll try to.
We'll be back next week. We'll talk about what should be a very exciting week. For good games this first week. I like a lot of these games.
Yeah. We'll be getting into the first week in the NFL. We'll
preview week 2.
Yeah, we'll be inching toward MLB playoffs, the postseason.
Yeah.
And maybe talk some NBA, although it's still a little early.
Yeah. We're talking about maybe starting an NBA or MLB playoff or podcast if this thing gets off the ground running more. But we'll discuss that later. In the meantime, you can visit us on our YouTube channel, which should be, well, you should probably be there if you're listening to this on YouTube. There will be a link in the description to our YouTube channel, our webpage, and I think that's it, and our SoundCloud. So thank you for listening, and have a good weekend. Bye.